What's going on, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at the Palace, coming to you quickly this Saturday morning before Arkansas-Texas football, because I know y'all are going to be watching that. Appreciate anybody who tunes in for a little basketball talk before the Razorbacks and the Longhorns get together on the gridiron. But want to jump in real quick and just hit you guys with a little bit more breakdown stuff of kind of what we're dissecting after that Troy game. Obviously, Arkansas has a couple days before they have to get ready to play Pacific. We talked about the depth issues that the Razorbacks are facing yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about something Cal said about just kind of how he's prioritizing the different areas that Arkansas has got to clean up between their last game and their next game, and things that they're focusing on moving forward and how they're approaching it. Here's what he had to say about that.
Here's what I said to my staff. We've got to look and zero in on 3, 4, or 5, maybe 3, 4 things that we need to zero in on that could keep us from winning. Pick and roll defense was better today, wasn't it? Well, we worked on it. High hands were better. You can't work on 13 things. What are the 5 or 6 things that could keep this team from winning other than missing every single wide open shot? Other than that. So that's what we're coming back to. And after watching this tape, we'll get together and I'm going to come up with 5 or 6 things, 4 things. We're going to be unbelievable at these 4. If we lose, it is not going to be for these.
Okay, you get the picture there. So he's looking at really, there's and it's every team in the country, man. Like, you really have a lot to work on. You got to sharpen up a lot of areas. You haven't mastered much at this point in the year. Nobody has, but you can't fix it all at once. So you really got to prioritize and identify a handful of things. He said 4 to 5 that, he wants to really, really hone in on between now and Pacific. And he's already addressed some of them. Ball screen defense, I agree. Excuse me, it was better against Troy. Having high hands, closing out to shooters, I agree. It was better against Troy. And then he kind of threw out the obvious there, which was like, hey, yeah, we're missing every wide open shot. Of course, we're going to work on that. So we're going to stay away from those things. Excuse me. But I think 5 things here that I would really hone in on if I was them between now and the Pacific game, and please feel free to jump in the comments and hit me with anything I miss. There's plenty, but these are just kind of on the priority list for me. Number 1, I think just cleaning up the half-court offense, right? Need that to be a little bit sharper for sure. It's kind of crazy, the setbacks that we've seen from the Kansas game where they look so crisp, the ball movement, the player movement. It was really in sync and rhythm. There just felt like there was a flow to it, and we haven't seen so much of that since. It was a little bit better in the second half against Troy, but that game was different from a standpoint of they were really trying to run and jump some. They were mixing up their defensive looks. So they by design make it really difficult for you to find a rhythm, because you got to continuously change what you're doing based on the defense that they throw at you. So I don't read too much into that, but it is something they need to clean up. From one standpoint of it. And I think a big emphasis on it for me would be that I think Arkansas needs to have Johnell Davis as more of a focal point to what they're doing in the half court. Run stuff towards him and run stuff for him, because it seems like they always start the offense away from Johnell, to the point where they start everything to the right side towards DJ, and you see Nelly Davis just kind of hanging out in that left corner. He's just sitting there far too often, going multiple possessions without touches. You guys have seen me on Twitter. I've been all over it. I just think he's your best player, and he's your most proven creator of offense right now. You got to have the ball in his hands more. So run some stuff in his direction, run some things for him, and let him initiate the offense some. It's not like you're just moving Boogie Fland off the ball and he's not playing point guard anymore, but there's nothing wrong with a handful of possessions per half when you're trying to get your best player going, of having him on the ball, especially when he's a really good creator. That's something I would really like to see Arkansas do more, because if you really get Johnell Davis going and he's averaging, 15 to 18 points per game, and you can just pencil that in every single night, he's comfortable, he's within the flow of things, and everything else is kind of going through him and around him. I think that's going to be the best version of Arkansas offensively. So big deal for me, the half-court offense. Number 2, defensive rebounding. I think that's really, really important for Arkansas right now, especially just because they're thin in the front court. We don't know what Trevin Brazil's status is going to be. We don't know when Jonas Adu is going to be 100% healthy. They might not have either one of those guys for a game or two. You got out-rebounded by Troy. That's not what you want to see. But it was actually better in the second half when they were super shorthanded than it was in the first. They were -10 on the boards in the first half. I think it's because they missed a bunch of shots. So there were a lot of opportunities for Troy to go get them as defensive rebounders. But you did allow 13 offensive rebounds to a mid-major team. You can't be doing that. So really, really a lot of focus in practice on just like I think it's just a different mentality that the guards probably have to have, right? Of just, really, really getting in there and being active on the glass. John L. Davis is really, really good at it. That's not going to be an issue for him. DJ Wagner's a big physical guard. I think he's going to be able to really help with the defensive rebounding. But it's something you might have to really coach with the freshmen who might be playing more on the wing or down at the 4 even. So we're talking about, Carter Knox and Billy Richmond really getting your nose in there and being active and aggressive on the defensive glass and securing those things. Dude Thero, if he's playing the 5, I'm not really worried about him as a rebounder, but it's a different type of rebounding for him, to whereas he would, in past times maybe be able to go down and crash. This time he might be defending a 5. So it's a little bit different when you're not coming from the wing to rebound and you're already on the block. So you got to box out and then explode and go get it. Those things to work on, especially in the interim here, if they're shorthanded in the front court, going to be really, really important to be able to secure those things. Arkansas is so good defensively. You can't be giving up second shot opportunities. Number 3, defending without fouling, but then finding the balance there between being aggressive, because Arkansas has been so good defensively when it comes to just creating havoc. They rank top 10 in the country in block percentage. They rank top 20 in the country in steal percentage. They're forcing turnovers at an elite rate right now. And it's really fueling a lot of things on the other end. And quite honestly, they've been able to hang their head on it and stay in games when the shots haven't been falling. You don't want to sacrifice too much on that now, because let's say you get into a situation next week where you're only playing with 7 guys in your rotation, you got to be very aware of staying out of big foul trouble, but you don't want to be passive. And you don't want to be back on your heels defensively, because then things becomes too easy on the offense. They're scoring too many points on you. So there's a fine line there when it comes to defending, being aggressive, being opportunistic with your gambles in the passing lanes, but not being over ambitious and getting yourself in foul trouble, because that stuff can add up on you quick. And it's not just at the end of games. It could be, if a guy gets 2 fouls now in the first half early, you have to sit him. Like, you have no choice, because you cannot risk that third early. And then you might be playing, 14, 13 minutes of a first half with only 6 guys. So it's something they really got to be aware of, working on, defending, moving your feet, not defending with your hands, all those things. I bet it's going to be a big emphasis for them the next few days. Number 4, I've got transition offense / like converting off of turnovers. Arkansas, let me pull up the box score from the other day. They forced 24 turnovers in the game and had 24 points off of those turnovers. So you want to average about 1 point per turnover force. So they did that. But I think they could really do that at a much higher rate and get a little bit more out of that. Especially if, again, if you can't be quite as aggressive defensively, so you might not generate as many turnovers, you need to really cash in on the ones you have. And then Arkansas, I think right now, while they're still figuring things out in the half court, and it was really good to see them start knocking down some threes, that helps a lot. But you have to really take advantage of those fast break opportunities. Arkansas only had 15 fast break points against Troy. I don't know how fast they're going to be able to play if they've only got 7 guys out there. But when you get a steal or a defensive rebound and an outlet, how quickly can you get up the floor and get some easy ones, some cheapies? You need them. Arkansas was just, I don't know, like maybe they're just not playing quite as fast as I thought they would. And I think they're going to have to do that again. It's going to be a weird balance for them, I think, here in the interim, but you got to go. And so there's things you can do for that, like working on a free throw break. Like you see, like North Carolina has a great one, a sideline break, where it's not get the rebound and you're dribbling it up the floor, but just kind of creating lanes where you can pass the ball up the floor quickly in transition and put a lot of pressure on the defense. And you don't always have to score in your primary break, but sometimes what we see is Arkansas, they'll kind of push it up the floor. If they don't have anything, then they really just back it out, and then it slows down. They get into that floppy action, and it just kind of takes away from some of the pace and the flow of the game. Maybe adding a secondary break to where if you don't have anything immediately when you cross, you get into some quick action that can get you some fast buckets. And so maybe that's something they could work on there, just taking advantage a little bit more in the opportunities that they do have in transition. The last one for me, and it kind of goes on the same wavelength as converting off of those turnovers. I think they need to work on rim finishing a little bit there. 3 of 11 on layups in this game against Troy. And then, I think back to the TCU exhibition, the Baylor game, even a little bit against Lipscomb, not as much though. But just some shots around the rim that I just really feel like this team is going to make at a pretty high clip. They're going to be at their best when they're getting downhill and finishing around the basket. And you want to supplement that by being competent from three, right? Can't be going 3 of 11 on layups against a mid-major school. And so I think some of that is just not changing or altering your shot and just being strong and playing through the whistle and through some contact. I think early on we were seeing like John L. Davis, for example, he'd get in there in the lane, but he was really trying to get too creative with it, changing his shot too much. And then he wasn't getting the call and he wasn't making it. But he's made some adjustments there. I think a lot of those guys could do that. DJ not finishing quite as well as he had been earlier in the season. Because here's the thing. You either need to go strong and finish through a little bit of contact or around the rim because you've got to take advantage of those points. But you also need to draw some whistles and get higher amount of FTAs. I know they only shot 50% from the free throw line, which obviously, like Cal said, you got to make open shots. That includes free throws, but only 14 FTAs. That's not great. It's not what you want. And even Baylor, they had an uptick, but I think it was only like 14 of 17. They need to be shooting 20 plus free throws per game, especially for a team that's got so many downhill drivers and so much athleticism and length. Need to be getting those. So you either got to convert or get to the line and be able to knock those down. So those are kind of the 5 things that maybe I would focus on if I was Arkansas. I'm sure that, if it's like 3 of them that Cal wound up picking, before this next game, I'd feel pretty smart about what I came up with here, but I'd be curious to see what else some other people think, because I know there's a lot of areas this team could work on as they figure some things out. But I'm going to get out of here. Again, I really appreciate everybody who tunes in on Saturday morning before an Arkansas and Texas football game. But I hope that I'm able to come and join you guys again later today. So be on the lookout for that. We're on potential commitment watch here with the local kid. We don't know what time that's going to happen. It might be halftime of the football game. It might be sometime Saturday night. But if and when it does, we're going to go live, Pot of the Palace, and we're going to break it all down. So it should be exciting times. But I'm going to get out here. Appreciate you guys. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pot at the Palace. Everybody have a good day, despite what might happen with the football game. Win or lose, we're all Razorback fans. Enjoy.